Hello and welcome to Language of the Soul podcast. I'm your host, Dominick Domingo.
And I'm your co-host, Virginia Grenier.
We'd like to invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy some inspiring conversation. Here at Language of the Soul, we know that life is story. Individually, we're the products of the stories we tell about ourselves. Culture is the amalgamation of the stories we weave about the human condition. Here's the thing. Individually and collectively, we can write our own story. Thanks for tuning in and joining in the march toward human potential. Hi guys, and welcome to Language of the Soul podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm very excited about this week's episode. I know I've said that before. It could start to sound disingenuous, but I'm very excited because I'm going to get to talk about The Seeker a little more, author to author, in maybe not greater depth than the previous one, but just kind of from a different angle. Our today's guest is a humanities professor, but also has a master's in literature. She also happens to be my dear sister, René Urbanovich. She's been on the podcast twice, and her episodes are just gold. So I really value this conversation we were just able to have, and her generosity in interviewing me about my book. But really, I think what's of value to listeners is the subtext of my novel is just kind of very much in the spirit of this podcast. And as some of you may know, this podcast is based off of my other pandemic book, Language of the Soul. The two were back to back, and I call them pandemic books for a reason. They were part of that creative explosion that I think a lot of us experienced in the isolation. But more importantly, I almost lost my life, and I've anecdotally just called it my brush with death, but it was a lot. And fighting to regain not just my motor skills and my strength and my immune health, but my agency in the world. So the parable of that journey is called The Seeker. And that's the book that René and I are going to talk about. But I thought before we get into the nitty-gritty, because again, we talk about the thematic content in great depth. That'll just mean a lot more if you know the play-by-play. So I'm going to read the book jacket. It's not just what they call a plot summary, which can be very much a play-by-play, but it's a true synopsis, and that I sprinkle in just enough thematic content to talk about the meaning behind the superficial plot. Okay, so hopefully this book jacket synopsis or plot summary will give you a little background for the conversation that we're about to share with you. Okay, reading in the dim light from the back of my book, Amitayus is unaware of his divine heritage. He has but one foggy, time-shrouded memory of his mother. In it, she has lulled him to sleep with her lullaby on the volcanic shores of Milos. He wakes in time to see her poised on a swell of alabaster sand, gazing back at him. Her eyes are those of one on the brink of freedom, but they are mired with equal regret. She dashes beyond the bone-white hill crest, and is gone. When Amitayus is 17, Dianora's lullaby comes to him on the breeze, overtaking the song of the sea. Amitayus fights his practical nature. He has no use for gods or goddesses or mortal heroes, but knows he must heed the call. He sets out on the Zeiton, his father's barge, vowing to sail the 7 seas to find her. His route intersects with Icarus's flight path from the palace at Knossos, and it is Amitayus who rescues a drowning Icarus from the sea when the boy plunges from glory. The two continue on as a team, scouring the Cyclades for any clue of Dianora's whereabouts. They face great peril, learning the cruel King Minos has put a price on Icarus's head, and they are being tailed by Petrus Kyriakou, the most ruthless bounty hunter in the Greek Isles. An oracle warns Amitayus his desire is misguided and goes against the gods. But faith compels him onward to face the forces of nature that conspire against them. Raging tempests, tidal waves, the Messenian invasion, and the eruption of Thera, which will one day incinerate much of the Cyclades. As it turns out, Zeus himself is determined to thwart the boy's mission, but not for the reason Amitayus thinks. The truth of his divine heritage, discovered through great fortune and equal defeat, ultimately leading him to Mount Olympus itself, is revealed only through peril, ultimately triumphing over disillusionment. Amitayus' journey toward redemption is one we all share. He learns in the end that the wrath of the gods was but a series of tests, that he might prove his heroism and secure his place in Elysium. The thing is, he's not sure that's where he wants to end up. Okay, so that's the synopsis, and I am now going to invite my dear sister into the room. Welcome, René Urbanovich.
Hi, everyone. I'm René Urbanovich, and I'm so excited to host Language of the Soul. I listen to every episode faithfully, and it has really been transformative for me, and to be a part of the team makes me feel really good. I'm going to introduce today's guest, who you know as Language of the Soul podcast host. His name is Dominick Domingo. He's a veteran Disney feature animation artist and live-action filmmaker whose award-winning narrative nonfiction essays and short stories have been included in many anthologies. His young adult fantasy trilogy, The Nameless Prince, launched in 2012 through Twilight Times Books and has been capturing imaginations since. The Seeker represents Dominick's foray into mythic visionary fiction. It is a universal parable about transformation that speaks to the journey we all share. Dominick resides in the Franklin Hills neighborhood of Los Angeles and can be seen pecking away on his laptop in coffee shops on any given day. Hello and welcome, Dominick.
Hello. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on my own podcast.
Isn't it great? I think
funny.
we should always have some reciprocity in this world, I think. And since I am such a fan, I'm a fan of creativity and storytelling, yes, but I am specifically a fan of The Seeker, and I have read it 3 times, and every single time I bawl my eyes out, and every single time I am touched by different themes depending on what I'm going through, because obviously overall the main theme is transformation, and yet within transformation there's many lessons, many themes, and many ideas that are definitely worth talking about. And I mean, I could talk to a book club about it, but I think talking to the author is probably the best way to go, because we can get some insights from the artist himself. So, is there anything I said or didn't say in the intro that you would like to clarify before we jump into the book?
No, beautiful. You got it right. I will say this. Thank you for being a loyal listener. I think you're the only one that's listened to literally every episode, and your feedback just means the world to us. You really hear. Anyway, for the listeners that don't know, René has come back to us with, little grains of wisdom she plucks out that meant something to her in that moment and just means the world to us. It's so hard to get feedback in your creative efforts. So we don't deserve you. Thank you so much. Seriously. And you always, and I believe you, René, you regularly assure me you're not just being a good sister, but that it actually speaks to you. And that's what we hope. There's a lot of kindred spirits out there. And I know I'm not a real devoted podcast listener, but I do listen to Oprah, believe it or not, the soul, what's it called? Super Soul podcast.
Oh,
and Michael Beckwith and Marianne Williamson. I've got my I guess mentors in a way in the podcasting world, but also I have my muses that keep me going. They get me up in the morning. So thank you anyway. Thank you for everything you've offered us, including just the validation. You're a great cheerleader. Thank you.
It's what I do for a living. I am a teacher, and so I have feedback naturally, but I'm also a singer, so I'm very expressive, and I have to talk about my feelings, and I have to get them out. But I'm also a huge fan of Language of the Soul, or I promise you, just because you were my brother, I would not listen to it, just because you're my brother.
Right.
I listen to it because
you've said that, and I believe you. I believe you. Sorry, go ahead. I cut you off.
I look forward to it, and I love it. And I also love reading. I'm a literature hound, so getting to read a work where you actually can talk to the author, there's nothing better. So, okay, so
well, you deserve a prize. The fact that you've read it so many times and now you've listened to the audiobook, like, you deserve a prize for that. So, okay, all of that out of the way. Thank you so much.
It was. Well, I'm just going to also say that, as a voice teacher, I mean, I've been telling you for years, and I know that you also come from my family, and our grandpa had a really resonant, beautiful voice, and it's such a rare voice. And to get to hear it when you sing a song, or just when you leave messages, is one thing. But to hear the narration with this voice of yours, I'm so happy you're doing audio books for other people too. It's a voice that needs to be reading these really epic, or not. I mean, it's just so perfect for the dramatic. And I'm a sucker for all the drama. I am such a sucker for all the images, and it seems more alive to me when you hear it read to you. So anyway, I love it, but I love both of them.
Awesome. Yeah, I did in the interview with Shauna, I did say, strangely, Renee said it landed differently. I think it's the author's voice. It doesn't matter. Of course, I tried to make it epic and all that and use my storyteller voice. But I just think hearing it from the author, it's just got to land differently. But anyway, thanks for saying that.
Well, I'm going to say something really mean right now about my absolute favorite author on the planet, Barbara Kingsolver. She can do no wrong. She's brilliant. If you haven't read Demon Copperhead, oh my God.
Send it my way. Book. You're my lifeline to decent literature. I told you I've been reading, again, this is the meanest thing I'll say in this interview. I've OD'd on manuscripts. I read a lot of them just to audition on Audible. Then I read them when I get a gig. I've got to read the manuscript. And I go above and beyond on this podcast and read entire books in preparation to have guests on. I'm like Lucy in the candy shop is how I put it. I need a shower after. And it's not, I'm like you, I'm a cheerleader. I never say good, bad, right, or wrong in my teaching. I don't believe, there's just cause and effect. I'm that guy. But Virginia and I decided we're going to start a podcast called Not Tell Your Story, but Shut the Fuck Up. Like, not everybody's a writer, And I've OD'd on it. So when you send, by the way, I found a paperback version of Ocean Vuong. On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous. So I can give you back your hard copy, your hardcover, or I can give you the little paperback that I found. I found it in a free library in my neighborhood. The little.
I think you should. Yeah, best book in the world on Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. Give it to the next person you meet that loves literature, because I definitely have a hard copy. I have all his work in one corner of the bookshelf. But I was going to say that Barbara Kingsolver can do no wrong. Other than one thing, reading her own book. She needs to not. She needs to not. She ruins it. She needs to not read her own books.
Yeah, it's a separate skill set. It's a separate, we've had enough guests read excerpts on our show that I feel the same way. Like, just let people use their imaginations, and the delivery's everything. And, people go, oh, you have a great voice. And it's like, that's kind of insulting. It's about the interpretation, isn't it? It's about your iteration of it. You're kind of acting in a way, so I just feel like whatever, the technical qualities of my voice are neither here nor there. Isn't it about the way you're interpreting the content?
Oh, you are absolutely right. Especially as a singer and a singing teacher. One of the best things I've ever read was in a book about how to teach singers. And the writer said you take a snow globe and you hold it up in the room with everybody watching and you shake it. And then everyone watches the snowfall and they love it. And it's magic and it's beautiful and they can't take their eyes off of it. But they didn't come up to you afterwards and say, we love the way your hand shook that snow globe. It's not about that. It's about the moment that everybody's connected to. So when you say my voice should be neither here nor there, I agree with you. But some people really shouldn't be reading their own books. And your voice, if it's taking away and the technical aspects are taking away from the story, then that's a bad thing. Yeah. That's no good.
You want to see
for sure your
medium.
Voice adds.
Well, thank you. I will own that. I'm just saying it's kind of the seeing through the medium to the message thing, right? You shouldn't really be aware. But I'm just going to be real frank here. Like, it's like somebody, if you go see a film in the theater and the actor's there in the lobby and you go, oh my God, you're so good looking. I loved watching you for 2 hours. It's like, but I was acting too. Like, can you give me a little credit for the acting? So people go, oh my God, you've got a podcast. It's perfect for you. You have that voice. And I'm like, Okay, but we put a lot of thought into the content.
Yeah, exactly.
It's demeaning. It's reductive.
Yeah.
It's reductive. Okay.
Yeah, it is. It is. I could say more examples, but we can move on. Okay, so I'm just going to start with the thing that I thought I came up with. I had a little Venn diagram. My master's degree is in literature, so for anyone that doesn't know that or that cares. So, of course, when I read something that is rich and layered with metaphor and themes and motifs and, deep characterization that's not, quote unquote, just like, I don't know, not commercial per se, because certain pieces of literature can be commercial, but, the ones that are just to pass the time, but something that's going to stick with you and that's meaningful and that's transformative. So I made a little Zen? How about Venn? Venn diagram.
I'm with you.
Okay, a Venn diagram of this big circle, and in the middle was transformation. Because I thought to myself, if I had to pick one theme to talk to Dominick about, what would it be? I thought transformation, for sure. And then I put all the things, like a spider that go around it. Is that a Venn diagram?
Well, Venn diagrams are like when the three things intersect. But maybe, no, I think there's another word for what you're talking about with all the circles around it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I get the idea.
Yeah, that's the one all the things around it were everything that was in Amitayus's life. So we've got this guy, and his name is Amitayus, and the most exciting thing is that the story is on the coattails of Icarus. And even people who do not study myth, who have no idea, Zeus from Helios, from Persephone, from Demeter. Everybody knows Icarus. He flew too close to the sun. So I would like the very first question to be, what made you choose that guy from that myth and build a story around that surrounds with so much, obviously thought and work and research, but why did you pick Icarus?
Wow. Well, you do know I almost said it. The protagonist is Amitayus. He's the one with the real arc, right? And you did kind of say that, but it does hinge on Icarus and his relationship with Icarus. So you may not even know this, but in the early 90s, you're going to remember that I started a little children's book about Icarus, and I took the sabbatical to actually finally sit down and illustrate it, and never saw the light of day for a variety of reasons. But at that time, I would have said, it really spoke to me. Again, it hadn't really been overdone. Icarus has been used in video games, and it's very much on the pop culture radar the past maybe 20 years. But in the early 90s, it really wasn't. I don't think that video game had come out yet. I just know whenever I read, and I'm not an expert in Greek mythology or any kind of mythology, but I had read it for whatever reason, and I immediately just related to it. I think we can all pick a myth that is the story of our life. Or many. I think I do a fascinating exercise and a workshop that I want to do more often about writing the myth of your life. But I start by saying, which one do you identify with? One person could say, oh, the ugly duckling, because I didn't come into my own agency or power till later in life. But for whatever reason, Icarus spoke to me, and I thought, oh, wow, well, the academic interpretation is kind of, I think you hinted at this, moderation, don't fly too high, don't fly too low, know your place in the universe. And there's a micro and a macro to that, right? The hubris of mankind and all of our endeavors, trying to kind of, hubris is the best way I can put it. But that it really took that on, I think, during the Dark Ages, before we re-embraced our humanity during the Renaissance, right? We were kind of seen as faulted creatures and a lot of fire and brimstone. So it was kind of perfect to view it as mankind should know his place in the universe. Don't get any ideas. Don't get any lofty ideas. But I read it, and I immediately appreciated the projections that myths lend themselves to, right? They really lend themselves to personal projections. But also I thought, wow, if you read it in context, in elementary school, you read them in isolation. But I read Icarus, and then I found out more and more about Daedalus. And frankly, I thought, wow, all the fucked up shit his father did. His whole career was trying to cover up for past mistakes.
Mm.
You know, he pushed his competitor off the cliff. Then he had to skip town because although he wasn't persecuted for it, you know, he wasn't very popular, so he had to skip town. You know, then he gets under the wing of Minos and starts inventing pretty perverse things for the kingship.
Mm-hmm.
And then, oops, she fucked the bull. Now there's a Minotaur. Better confine him. So he built the labyrinth to confine the Minotaur. Everything was, rather than redeeming himself, right, just trying to cover things up and fix his former mistakes. So I won't say too much, but I really related to the idea of, and I wouldn't have said this back in the day, but just intergenerational trauma, and we're all tasked with the baggage of our ancestry or our forefathers, and we're all meant to redeem our ancestors in some way. So I'll leave it at that because I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but I felt the weight of redeeming those that came before. And interesting, René, right, that I've crashed and burned just like Icarus the past few years. Took many decades, but it wasn't sustainable. The idea of redeeming was not sustainable. And I literally crashed and burned. That was a very recent observation, by the way. Anyway, does that help a little bit? It was started with Icarus.
Yeah. Well, I think that when you say, I myself crashed and burned even after 20 years ago, thinking that I had, didn't want any of this generational trauma or the mistakes of my father. And in the book, he calls it the sins of the father. And so the fact that later on, many times in the book, but especially the end, the gods, both the I think maybe Hades and his mother, Dianora, and one other god, and Zeus. Three people, or three gods, goddesses, three powers said just that much, that that the world is going to break your heart. So like you might think when you're 20, oh, none of that shit's going to happen to me. And the boys said it too. Cyril and Nico said that too. Like, yeah, life is going to break your heart. Whatever made you think it wouldn't, basically, right? Once you've been around long enough. But when you're young, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and you're looking at all the mistakes maybe your dad made, or, this guy, Icarus, is looking at all the shit his dad was, just buried under. He couldn't get out. So at least he wanted his son to get out. It's a beautiful thought when you look at it that way, that, that maybe it was about Icarus having that hubris of youth. Maybe he was the jerk, but his father was trying to redeem his son at least.
Right. Yeah. I guess, you're taking it into new territory, and it's fascinating. I'm going to keep thinking about all of that, but I'll just clarify the intention on that front. I think that's what the journey is. I've kind of packaged it in my mind as, it's universal. It's the spiritual journey we all share. It's the hero's journey. I've actually reduced it in my mind to just that. But I started going back into my initial notes and just realizing all the layers that have become anecdotal to me now, if that makes sense. And I will say that it is about, without any spoilers, I think the main parable is reconnecting. The journey is the odyssey, call it what you want, but the seeker is to reconnect with our divinity. And so I've reduced it to this idea that we all have a source, and our pure consciousness is divine. We all have divinity within us. But then life experience, your ego builds up defense mechanisms, just call it mind and ego, takes the front seat for survival. But then there is a point where you want to reconnect with that divinity. So I do think youth, it's called the hubris of youth for a reason. In our early 20s, we do have the agency to self-create. We have the fucking world by the balls in our 20s, right? We think we know the answers. We have all the answers. And so maybe it's as simple as that, and we do relearn lessons over and over again, right? But I think the journey is that I don't want to say too much, but there is that moment where I did have a lot of alchemy. I self-created in the early 90s or my 20s. And I liken it to The Alchemist as well. He calls it beginner's luck.
Yeah.
He calls it your personal legend. When you pursue your personal legend, the universe conspires in your favor. I got a little older and I thought, no, it's just people want to give you things when you're young. We help young people out. And half the people want to get in your pants, so they throw things at you. You don't realize the world is set up to support youth, So I think there's a million ways of looking at it, but then you lose that alchemy. I for sure hit a point where I thought, what the hell happened to the alchemy of youth? And right. And I wasn't able to manifest the way I used to. So then it's about recapturing that agency. That's what the journey is about. Yeah.
Well, and that's where the transformation comes in, because even like on any journey, like a physical journey, let's just say you're walking 100 miles, those shoes are going to wear out, right? So the things that serve you at one point, then you got to go out and get new shoes. And in this tale, in this story, it's a lot of it is about the lens through which you're seeing the world. And so things happen to Amitayus, things in his life happened to him, and it started to shape or color the lens that he saw the world through. And so in order to get back to the main theme for me anyway, because I want to be as linear as I can, the idea of transformation can't happen if you don't change your shoes, let's say, or change
your bag of tricks.
The lens you're looking at, because then you have to stop. And he also said, Amitayus says this, I don't know, chapter 16, 17, 18, 19. He said something like, how many times have I been in that dark cave and had to be reborn? And then the gods tell him that too, like it keeps happening. And I'll tell you a quick story. I was standing up in church and I was 28 years old and I was giving the tale. I was giving my testimony, right? So I'm telling everybody about how I lost my faith and I couldn't even hear the Lord and it was so dark and blah, blah, blah. And I was bawling my eyes out and I was so happy I was in the light again. And I was so happy that I felt the Lord again and all that. And this girl, Lauren, this woman, Lauren, who was at least 10 years older than me, I swear, I kid you not, comes up to me after the church service and takes me by the wrists and says, I loved your testimony, but don't you dare think it's not going to happen again and again and again. Wow. And I looked at her like, because I thought I knew everything, right, at that moment. And I also had I thought it was over. I thought, well, that was good.
You thought you arrived, right?
Yes.
Right.
So to read it in this book was just like, amen. That's right. And then I was thinking this, Nick, what if it stops? What is it then? So now I'm 60, and what if my transformation or my darkness and light, darkness and light, darkness and light, what if that cycle stops? What does that mean my life is, right? What does that mean to all of us?
What's your conclusion?
Well, I'm asking, what would that mean? That I'm just not growing or transforming, I guess. Yeah.
Well, that's the idea, right? I mean, it sounds really cliche, but, crises are opportunities in disguise. And the catalyst for change is always discomfort at the very least, right? Or some kind of major challenge. And sometimes, this is said in the book, sometimes the universe speaks louder and louder to get your attention on a certain front if you're repeating your cycles, right?
Right.
And if you don't listen, right, then the stakes get really high. And go ahead.
And Amitayus, he didn't mean to not listen. He thought he was listening, but he was so distracted first by, I guess, romance, right? He was absolutely distracted from his mission or his mission, his life's goal, what he thought was his purpose. And of course, that's the beauty of literature, as the audience might know, the reader might know that what he doesn't know, but he thought his life's purpose was to reconnect with his mom, and to either rescue her or whatever. But deep inside, obviously, he had other lessons to learn that he didn't even plan on. He didn't plan it. And here's another example. You can sit in Bible study and you can sit and learn, love is patient, love is kind, love does not boast, and go, oh, now I know what love is. Hell no, you don't.
Yeah, because it's theoretical, right?
You can't study about love. You got to feel it, right? You got to live it. So he doesn't know what his journey is supposed to look like, but he thinks he does. And so he gets completely distracted. He gets derailed by romance, by riches. What else?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, because I actually don't want to diminish his purpose or his calling or his mission. I think it was the real deal. We're being called upon to reconnect with our divinity. But absolutely, I kind of intentionally created this parallel where he amasses riches. I wrote a version of Sinbad once where it's symbolic. Going out into the world on an odyssey, you can amass riches, and it's just symbolic for spiritual character or emotional maturation, really. But I actually, in researching for today's conversation, I looked back at my initial notes. As I said, I have a map of this, not just the Cyclades, but the entire Aegean, and there's a lot of islands, by the way. And anyway, it was an ancient map with all the old names, like Anatolia instead of Turkey, and Attica instead of Athens. And anyway, an old map. And then I drew on it, and I drew the route. They're going to visit this island, but they're going to bypass that one. I wanted the sexy ones like Rhodes and, Crete. You got to have Crete because that's where he's going to intersect with Icarus. So anyway, I mapped out the whole journey, but then I did a whole chart with 2 columns, and I put, here's the clues, right, to finding Dianora, and here's the riches. On every given island, there's certain riches. And of course, I researched what kind of alloys were being traded at the time and what goods were being traded. And anyway, and I just really worked out, like, he amasses riches here, and then he gains a clue here, and they were kind of neck and neck. But yes, the idea was, when we go, simply put, at home, Amitayus was disappointed with gossip. And I call it the worst, the most unsavory aspect of the human condition. So that was his deal. We all have our deal, right? But he developed a pretty negative view of humanity just because of the pettiness on that small island. So that was his thing. Then he goes out into the world, and actually he sees through the pettiness of everybody back home, and that's empowering. But then, yes, life has its disillusionments and disappointments. So I intentionally made him kind of diverted enough by material manifestation, right, that he forgets about his mission. And how do you say no to love? He actually says, why would I say no to something that literally dropped from heaven into my path?
Right on. Yeah, I remember that.
And so, yes.
And so, so he doesn't mean to be derailed, but he does get distracted. But, just having that roadmap, it reminds me of like a treasure map, like the scavenger hunt. You have to figure out where to go, and then they give you the next clue,
Right.
When you go on, And so that's what it reminds me of. But even if the reader doesn't know that treasure map or that scavenger hunt instructions or whatever, those are the things that completely layer the story and undergird the journey, so that it's not just an external journey and then you throw in some internal things. Your internal and your external are intertwined from day one.
Yeah. I'm glad you appreciated all that about it, and that you understand the milestones, because I do think they're universal, but I could, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus by being specific. But yeah, it's absolutely the story of my life, but through the lens of, this universal spiritual journey. So yeah.
Well, I could say this because I've raised 4 kids, and they're all getting up there now. I've got I think Jordan's 38, 37. Yeah, 37. I don't know. But the idea that you try and teach your kids, like there's this triangle that I guess I got from somewhere, a myth or Andrea, I don't know. And so there's a triangle, and there's a spiritual side, one side, and then there's the physical. And then there's relational, and in the physical, it's financial, right? You got to get your shit together, and you got to make enough money to survive. And so what happens with all 4 of my kids is one of them will work really hard on the spiritual and like be able to, astral project or whatever.
Right.
And yet they don't make a penny to rub together and pay their own way, let's just say. Or one of them is really financially successful, but they forgot to work on the deep spiritual. And so, they reach the top of the mountain and they're rich, and yet they have nothing on the inside. I'm really exaggerating to make a point. So as we develop, we're all, going back and forth between what to me in the book was talking about. We struggle with our divinity. So we have to work on the physical because we have to eat. Right. And then we get lonesome for our deep inner soul, and we have to work on the spiritual. But you can't just work on one without the other. You're going to sink, or you're going to lose it.
Yep. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of models. It's not just mind, body, and spirit, right? There's a lot of ways where you can look at, you've got to nurture them all equally and keep that balance, right? And yeah, I think too, Maslow talks about your hierarchy of needs. Sometimes if your base needs aren't met, you don't have the luxury of doing your inner spiritual work, right? So anyway, but I will say this, the looking back at my original notes, and I was kind of surprised at what was there straight out the gate from the get-go and what evolved over time. But you surely saw a theme of the interplay between flesh and spirit.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I was trying to point out, that you're fighting for your divinity, but it's the flesh and the spirit. And even the gods at the end, Cyril and Nico were trying to tell him, look, this god did this. Like Andrea always says that, my friend Andrea is a mythologist, and she always says, even goddesses suffer. Like suffering is just, part of our growth. But as far as the luxury thing goes, that makes me want to kind of jump on this topic and ask you, the luxury of basically, you said something like, if your base needs aren't met, then it's really hard to pay attention to whatever the internal world. But when he lost everything, and he's like, God, I've lost everything. And then he's like, wow, there's some kind of freedom in this. This is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that is the other side of that coin. Sometimes when we have our needs met or we have privilege, let's put it that way, we get complacent. And so it's been said, some people, I think it was some natural disaster, maybe it was Haiti, and the impoverished people were more alive, And so I want to backpedal a little bit and say, you can be more spiritual. I think that's what I used to joke, like yoga is finding your center while in excruciating pain. If you can find your breath while in extreme discomfort, it's metaphorical for finding your inner stillness despite the circumstances and conditions around you. So there's a reason people that go to prison can find their redemption, because if you can find your core despite suffering, that seems to be the ideal. I don't know if we're talking about the same thing.
Right. Yeah. It's the same thing. It is the same thing. And just the idea that but I love him because he went through just about all of it, and he analyzed it, afterwards. He didn't analyze it, but he reflected. He reflected on it afterwards, like, there was a time when I blank and I learned this, and there was a time when I blank and I learned this. So he is very much in tune. But when he wasn't listening, when he was a little distracted or just really despairing or whatever, that's when the gods, quote unquote, conspired against him, and they sent horrendous storms
to get his attention, like I said earlier,
right? And that's what they said. That's what she said. Anyway, we had to get your attention, honey.
Right.
You weren't listening.
Thank you for catching all those. Thank you.
You gotta love it. But then life is kind of like that. Like we just keep moseying along, and then we think everything's going the way we think it should go.
And I think maybe most people can relate to, not that I'm championing hedonism, right? But a lot of people talk about, I'm not trying to get a crown in heaven. It's very fashionable right now to say, but life is here and now. Do you know what I mean? Don't live for that life you're not even sure exists. And so I wanted it to be a very real, he couldn't say no to what fell on his path. And then, the fingertip motif of touching fingertips. For Amitayus, life is here and now. It's a sensual, tactile sensation of fingertips touching.
Yeah.
And so he's like, okay, I know I'm a demigod and I have divinity within me and I'm destined for Elysium, but I'm not that interested. I'm kind of enjoying actual connection, right?
Yeah. Well, because he didn't have any faith before Icarus either. The love tank was on E, and so he didn't have a reference point. He didn't have a category, and so of course it took him away, and he didn't want to have to believe in, like Icarus believed in all of it. He had faith in all the gods and goddesses, and you're right. Like Amitayus was just like, like you said, the fingertip thing, the here and now. So there's the battle even between the two guys, two ideas, two ideas, one person who believes in all the gods and goddesses and heaven and all that and hell, and then someone who just wants the here and now. And yet he was called. He did have a calling for something greater and something more. He felt it.
Yep. Yeah. I could say... Ooh, I'm tempted to say something about everything, but I'll wait until you ask. Well,
I love how you expressed that,
and Yeah, I don't know that Amitayus was always about the here and now, but he was disappointed in humanity, clearly. So that was symbolic of just not believing in our divinity. He was
Mm-hmm.
disappointed in mankind. So how are we divine creatures? But
Mm-hmm.
he did settle in pretty nicely, right, to materialism once he had it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
And sorry.
no, as a reader, you get excited, like, oh, everything might just be okay. I do wonder if he's ever going to go back there to find his mom, though. Like,
Well, yeah, he very clear. Icarus actually musters. He says musters the. He doesn't say balls. What musters the gumption or something to finally address it and go, dude, have you forgot? Have you forgotten about her call altogether?
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
he says, I am content, here and now with you.
mm-hmm.
So
See,
I want the reader to really feel like, yeah, how could you say no to that?
yeah. Well, the reader does. We're with him. Like, I'm never arguing with him. I am rooting for him too, and I'm not sure why the gods are doing all this shit to him. And it's just a lot. It's just a lot. He's like roadkill, like more than once. But
Well, that's
also,
why part of that is the idea that you have to die to yourself to be reborn. And
mm-hmm,
it is my journey. Again, I'm not trying to draw parallels, but every step of the way, I lost everything but
mm-hmm,
my life. I lost everything but my life. And I
mm-hmm,
had to dig, and we haven't gotten to the fate thing yet, right? But I had to absolutely dig my heels in and go, you know what? My life is the one thing I'm not willing to give up. And
mm-hmm,
I'm not done here. And I've got more to do. So that's when I learned, oh, you get to co create with the gods. You're not
mm,
subject to fate, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that's why he didn't go to head to head with Zeus at one point. And I thought, well, the protagonist, because you think the protagonist is Minos. I mean, sorry, the antagonist is Minos, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Then you realize it's much, much bigger than that. And it's Zeus trying to thwart his mission every step of the way. So I intentionally had Zeus thrust through the clouds in that one scene and they have a standoff. And I
mm-hmm,
wanted him to not shake his fist at the gods, but say, why do you have it in for me?
mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people do get to the point where they feel like, I love the word maligned. I just heard that someone that came on the podcast said aligned or maligned. And
I like
so
and misaligned or just maligned.
well, that's what I did. I didn't correct her, but I go, actually the opposite would be misaligned. In my head, I thought that, but I just liked the wordplay.
Mm-hmm,
But you can be maligned to the point where on an energetic level, you're meant to be cold, you know?
mm,
And so I had a deadly disease. I should be dead were it not for Western medicine.
yeah.
So that's where it gets really personal. I think maybe everybody hits a point where they have to go, you know what? I am reclaiming my agency and I'm going to co create with the universe because I've got more to do here. I'm not in the ground yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, and if the illnesses that plagued you were from the gods, then and you told them, "Hey, why are you doing this to me?" Then they would turn around to you like they did to Amitayus and say, "Dude, it was to make you stronger.
Mm-hmm.
It was to,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was so that you could develop these eyes, and without these eyes, you wouldn't even know how to transform without all this shit happening to you."
Mm-hmm.
So it's beautiful.
And maybe tell me what you think. But lately, I've had the thought some people can kind of skate through life, right? Things are sustainable enough. And then I've always joked, like maybe on your deathbed you get good with God because it's final curtain, right? And
Mm,
but then different times in my life, I've said, no, we're all learning the same lessons. They just look different on different people, and nobody's really, um, I don't know, skating along. We all kind of are learning the same lessons at different times in different orders. It just looks different on different people. So I go back and forth on this one. But I did have the thought people that experience big challenges might be destined for greatness, right?
yeah.
Like there's
Mm-hmm,
something so much more potential there, but you
mm-hmm,
don't discover it until you shed those onion skins or whatever it
mm-hmm.
is, die to the self in order to be reborn.
That is a great, kind of one of the only ways we can frame it without getting bitter, right? Is that
Mm.
if somebody has, it's like when I had a toddler and they were strong-willed, and people go, well, the strong, because they're hard, right? They just want to twist their little head off all the time. But then people in the supermarket would go, that's okay. The strong-willed kids are the movers and the shakers, meaning, the hard times that you have to go through make you have better life or you're destined for great things. And
Yeah.
there's a Bible verse for that. To whom much has been given, much is expected, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it has new relevance right now too with all the neurodivergence. Again, without getting too personal, my godson is struggling. He's got ADHD, and I don't know, has kind of been a handful in school, and they're thinking about medicating him. And so I never want to be offering unsolicited advice because that's always criticism. But I gently said, I'm making this way too personal, but I kind of wish somebody saw my rebel without a cause nature or my defiance, or they did call me stubborn. I don't remember that, right? Like a rooster is going to come and land on your lip, they would say.
I remember that.
Yeah, grandma would say stubborn. And the biggest trouble I ever got in, our sweet grandma, she said, somebody said, well, I wonder where he gets that stubbornness from. And they looked at Emerson, right? And she goes, are you kidding me? I would have divorced him a long time ago if he was that stubborn. And mom actually said, mother, she called her, right? She actually said, you can't say that, mother. But I just wish I was validated for having a unique worldview, and caring about things that nobody else gave a shit about. That your liabilities become your gifts. So I did gently try to say that to Sherry. Neurodivergence can be a gift if you hang in there. And I'm not saying medicate or don't medicate, but just try to support the unique gift of neurodivergency.
Oh, that's a great thing to say, because it is really weird how our society, I don't know, either it's everybody's more people are more neurodivergent now than ever. But I mean, even Einstein and, let's just go down the list of, people that have accomplished great things were all, neurodivergent and kind of on the spectrum, off the spectrum, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's good when people can function better on medication, and I'm really happy for adults that have found that and their life is more manageable. It's a miracle. It's a miracle that they're making drugs for people to maybe stop being diabetic. I mean, it's time. It's about time that we're able to function without maybe but contemplating suicide all the time or whatever. And it's a miracle that you got your drugs to save your life. So there's so many wonderful things about it. And yet, those challenges will either, make or break us, I guess.
Yeah. In this case, I thought it's complicated, because if you don't do the drugs, then there's going to be bad experiences in school, being framed as a bad boy, or, just having interactions with your teacher that can scar you as well. So who knows? I really don't have any answers, because that can start to define you too. Anyway.
Well, and so interesting, because of course I was 4 or 5 years older than you, and I don't think I saw you as stubborn. Isn't that funny?
Well, you probably appreciated. Anyway, I just think I've regularly said, like, I just care about weird things that nobody else gives a shit about. So if something ruffles my feathers, it's just that it's not on their radar. That's all.
Yeah.
Weird things like, spirituality and humanity, things like that.
Just tiny little insignificant, ideas. Well, we were going to talk more about the how we need to, clock in to our divinity and make it part of our life's vision board, maybe, because people are really into getting a yacht per se, and they're not ashamed of that. To put that on their vision board, but for someone to say, I want to tap into my divinity and be proud of themselves for that. I think people are more excited about their embracing their failures right now.
Oh yeah. Well, also,
it's okay though.
Well, sorry. Well, I think maybe we're airing our dirty laundry too, right? Like we said before, what's your kid on? Like, what's the diagnosis du jour? Yep. So I don't know if it's a good trend, but at least we're acknowledging, again, depression, and we've all got something. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
It sure is, especially when everybody used to have to hide behind, keep up with the Joneses and hide everything. And just imagine just how scary that is, to just have to keep up with the neighbor and not share like you said, not air your dirty laundry, never, just hide it, fake it.
I think it's been a steady arc. Like if you look at the talk shows, the Jenny Joneses and the Geraldo Rivera's and even Oprah and Phil Donahue in the beginning, we started to expose what we'd swept under the rug, right? Whether it's domestic issues or learning disabilities or molestation, a lot of things that weren't talked about were literally put under the cultural microscope. So then maybe we hit a point where we're overdiagnosing, right, and over medicating children, that sort of thing. And now I do think we're rewarding people for being broken. And that's not empowering. I think we're going to find a balance where you can identify, then change the story, instead of beating those old threadbare drums of your diagnosis or your past, frankly,
Which is part of Amitayus's journey, is that the bad things that happened to him and the sad circumstance of being motherless colored or discolored how he saw the world. And he did beat that drum for too long. And so maybe as a society, when Freud had his capitulation theory that society itself is a character, right? And in the beginning, we were cavemen, which is like a toddler, and then we grow up. Each society grows up, and maybe that's where we are as a society, as a character, is that we're really looking at our wounds like you do when you're 29. You're looking at your history.
Right.
You're like, oh my God, I have so many wounds I've been traumatized by my family, and I want to have a boundary now, and I want to just be myself. And maybe as a society, we're going through that, like, oh, look at all the shit that we have. And now we're going to do what you just said, which is not reward people for being broken, but now we can get in touch with our divinity and that as an individual, and that will make the societal divinity that much more powerful because we've gone through the mud. We've sifted through it all.
God, I hope so.
God, I hope so. Maybe humankind not split up in between developing nations and, mother nations. Maybe it's just humankind. I'm not saying I agree with it, but, it could be one way to look at our development. God knows we have to pick something to be able to stomach everything that's going on everywhere.
Yes, we all need hope to get up in the morning. On a really good day, I do see the pendulum swings and I understand them and the regressions, but I know where the forward march. I know what it is. And I agree with you. I want to demystify the word divinity. I intentionally use the word divinity in the mythic context, right? But that's a little much for people. That's pretty heavy, right? All I'm talking about is subtract mind and ego from the fucking equation. What's left?
Amen.
What's left without ego? Love. And that's what I'm talking about. So call it our nature, our core essence, our pure consciousness. You don't have to go on and say it comes from the collective or it comes from God. It doesn't matter, but we are born pure. We build up these defense mechanisms over time as we go out into the world and have encounters and experiences. Anyway, just to demystify it a little bit, I used lofty language by choosing the word divinity, but nobody needs to clutch their pearls, right? When I use the word spirit, don't worry. I'm just talking about Oprah's spirituality, right? The non-threatening one, everything that's not your body. That's all. Everything that's not your body.
Our inner goodness. And, that was kind of played out. Actually, this kind of ties in. Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to give this away. I probably shouldn't, but it was kind of played out in war when two people looked into each other's eyes and saw the humanity. They saw them as humans, The humanity was like a huge subject in one of the later chapters, humanity. And so I think that humanity could kind of be parallel with love and parallel with one's divinity. And
do you remember what, I'm sorry if I interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
Do you remember what happened when they chose to see the humanity in their adversary?
Yeah, but that's why I was not sure if I was allowed to say it.
Well, what did that mean to you? I don't care. There's no spoilers here.
Okay. I was going to ask you about that, and I also wanted to ask you about Zeus. So, was that just? Well, tell me about it. I'm not gonna specify what my subjective ideas or whatever.
No, I'm tempted to ask you because, to be honest, that was one of the mysterious things that came off my pen, and I'm not sure. I mean, I guess I was thinking that war is all ego. Like,
yes.
I have no category for war. So war is all mind and ego run amok. And so on the battlefield, which shouldn't really exist in the first place because all battles are won far above the battlefield, right?
Right.
That if you make the mistake of actually seeing the humanity, you're screwed on that front. You better try the spiritual route, right? Because not diplomacy over war, simply put.
Well, I mean, that was very clear. So in my mind, if I was trying to analyze, well, why did that happen? He saw the humanity in his adversary, and it almost killed him. So therefore, A, don't bring your humanity to the battlefield, or B, there's no love on the battlefield. It's only ego, just as you said. Or C, the gods are orchestrating something here because they need him. They need to talk to him, right?
Yeah, it was one of many. The stakes just get higher and higher. And I think consciously I did think he's lost monetary things. He's lost his symbolic fortune. He's lost love, right? Icarus has flown in the wrong direction. And so what else can be taken from him? And I wanted him, because throughout he kind of prided himself on never having to use his skills in battle. Remember that? So I wanted him to experience killing. And witnessing death up real close and personal. And then he had so many illusions about Milos and the home. It really never was the place he's framed it, right? And so now you have the Mycenaean invasion threatening all he knows. So I just wanted the battlefield to be a place where really there's nothing. He's been stripped of everything, and now he can, as we said earlier, you can be reborn.
Right. Well, and also in my mind, comparing it to my journey, I'm going through my pain and all through maybe it was my 30s. I wanted to be surrounded by green because green is the color of healing, and I needed to heal from all my wounds. And then I broke out of that and was ready to serve the collective. And every day I wake up and go, how can I make a difference in the world? But until I got to that point, I was really working on myself. Yeah. So I felt like, oh, here he is. He's doing that. He was working on himself. And then it was time. He was reborn. And thought, yeah, I mean, I may never see my mom, but in the meantime, I'm going to go serve my country. I'm going to go make a difference. So
you're right. You're right. That was the milestone. So he learned from Diderot, his commander, that it feels really good to stop navel gazing, right? And contribute for a cause greater than yourself. And he even says, the cause of home is worth fighting for. Home being your spiritual essence again.
Well, and that's the thing, people that don't read myth or that don't read fantasy or that don't read fiction, the truth that you can get from the story, and then, like I said, it makes me think of my life, or it makes me think of raising my kids, or it makes me think, everything in the story is fantastical, and there's no such thing as, it is obviously centered in the old world of, Greece and Crete and everything, but clearly it's not real. And so it's like a good science fiction will teach you something that is real, even if it's far-fetched. You take something from it. And that's why this book has so many life's lessons. It's an epic journey, and you don't just close the book and say, well, I'm glad his life has a little ribbon and bow on it. It doesn't do that. It tells you this is the beginning of another. It ends with the beginning. It means this is the cycle of us getting closer and closer to what do you want to call it? Self-actualization, or our divinity, or our best self, the best version of ourselves, or the deepest fulfillment.
Transformation, as you said earlier, or redemption, maybe,
Well, and that's part of transformation. So I wanted to ask you about Zeus and why he was so against having a demigod in his line. Or did he represent like the yin and the yang, the yang of the yin of the yang? Because the mom wanted him to reach his potential, and Zeus seemed to be like, tell me about the Zeus trying to block.
Okay, I'm going to have to think about it a little bit. I know that I wanted him to be very faulted, as you said earlier. Gods have issues too. And again, I looked back at the notes, and I very early on know that it was about Dianora herself. The first scene I wrote was her on the beach. You remember that? Again, no spoilers, but the part where she's disillusioned by the sensual world. So she's on the beach, she's an expression of divinity, but I mean, literally on a metaphysical level, I wanted her to be the expression of consciousness in the physical realm. And that's more than the human condition. That's, you know what I mean? A lot of myth is about what is the nature of the consciousness expressed in the physical realm. You know, all organisms. Bowie does things, and I'm like, oh my God, dogs too? Right? Like something that, for example, being in a relationship and eventually taking each other for granted. I'm like, Bowie could take me or leave me, but he's all over strangers. Like, really? Dogs too? So I just think, or even just kind of, you know, getting a little older and taking things for granted. Like, Bowie, get your intellectual curiosity and enthusiasm back, please.
That's hilarious.
I just think all organisms have certain things in common, and it's the nature of not the human condition, but consciousness. I don't know if that made any sense.
No, it's beautiful. And to think that they didn't have the language, obviously. I mean, a lot of myth is written down, a lot of it is oratory, but just the whole language of consciousness, which has been more popular in our lifetime.
Yeah, and that was the, I guess, twist or the slant of this book, was telling it in kind of contemporary terms, but very archaic mythic terms as well. But anyway, back to the Zeus question. I wanted a lot of the gods to have human frailty when they manifested physically. They're great in heaven, but down here, do you know what I mean? Zeus ran around and had his dalliances, and I could say it much more crudely, right?
Yeah.
But I couldn't come up with the phrase. Yeah, he was a philanderer at best, right? When in human form. So I say that often, in human form, ... And so that speaks again to the flesh spirituality standoff that is part of the human condition, or just the expression of consciousness. Hope I haven't lost anyone. So I wanted Zeus to be so faulted that actually he was overcompensating for his own human frailty and his own dalliances by saying, oh no, he was ill-conceived. I'm not going to support, he's not my grandchild, you know? He kind of disowned his grandchild because he was overcompensating for his own dalliances.
Love it.
But on further examination, he actually says, it's said actually that these were all tests to prove yourself and earn your place in Elysium.
Yeah, he does say that.
So he actually wanted the best for his daughter, and he wanted the best for his grandson, but he absolutely had to prove himself. So it just goes back to, the stakes got higher and higher. The challenges really got harder and harder. And it's said the gods are benevolent.
It's said
in the end.
Yeah, and that it's all about love. So I like that you explained that to me, though, because I get it now that up there, when he's just a god, it's a lot easier than when he's trying to be human too. That's how hard it is to be human and find your divinity. I get it. I love it. Love it. Because he loses his divinity when he or she or whoever comes down and becomes not just consciousness, but is in the flesh. You
and in that very first, I'll just say it, the rape scene, which was the first scene, but I moved it later, as you know. That was the whole idea. Even her, she says she was ill prepared for attraction. Like, she had no idea what to do, and then she was disillusioned. She was kind of obsessed with human beings, but she had no idea what they were capable of. And then Icarus ends up being ill prepared for the real world because he spent so much time in isolation.
Oh God, isn't that good? And that's why there's many different characters kind of to reflect, different sides to a diamond, or the different angles of an elephant, or whatever, however you want to look at it. And that's exactly what you were saying about being younger and caring about certain things. People care about different things. And so whatever's in another person's journey that's not exactly like yours, the theme of transformation, redemption, love, it's all the same. Fear and love, like just breaking it down. But there was also a couple of places that made me cry. One of them was Stephanus.
Staphylos.
Staphylos. He's married to Staphylos.
Yeah, right.
And they were sitting there, and he's like, I know who you are. And he said, you can't, or whatever. And he's like, no, I know. You're part God. You're a demigod. He goes, no, I'm not. He's like, yes, you are. You're like, no, I'm not. And he's crying, like, you just need one person to believe in you.
Wow. Yeah.
One person to just go, dude, it's really you. No, it can't be. Yes, you're gonna do it. You gotta believe in yourself. And then when he meets the lady, maybe it's her, I don't know, and they have a special marriage where she's like, dude, you have to trust yourself. You have to trust the world. You got to trust that guy you're married to. You got to trust yourself. And then later on, they all say, just about everybody, his big brother type figures, and not his father, because his father's done pontificating, but that it all has to come from within. Gosh damn it! It comes from you.
Let me jump in. Thank you. I'm so glad that touched you, because it was pretty. I drew on life every step of the way.
I felt it.
Yeah, and I just wanted him to think himself wretched beyond redemption. I think we've all kind of been there, right? You think there's no going back. I can't recover that boundary. And the whole point of him saying, when I saw Ariadne on the beach, the gods can see the good in you. Right. And so I just wanted him, to be be that one person who can say, dude, I see the divinity in you.
I loved it so much.
And then, the idea that you trust yourself and you can handle what comes rather than putting your faith in your partner seems to be the way to go. Right.
And that's what faith is, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I did like how once he had been to Hades and realized that it was like more beautiful than people said, and that it was the center of, all creative inspiration and all of that. I really loved that he said something like, the real hell is war. The real hell is what we're doing to each other out there on the battlefield. I loved that. And I loved the whole thing about the Hades is not like this place of inspiration and pondering and curiosity and all the things that they're doing on the banks of the river Styx. It's not just for the poets, it's for everybody.
Right.
I loved that.
Yeah, it's the matrix of all germination. And it actually was that, I didn't make that up. That's it wasn't what it's become.
Yeah, well, leave that to organized religion. That's another podcast. But I don't know if I know your life because I've been close to you, and I was reading the book as my own self. I wasn't thinking, oh, my brother wrote that because he went through this, and my brother. I really was just reading it.
Hard to do, though. I give you a lot of credit for that.
I am good at that, and I believe that I did it, and I didn't want to, especially the first read. I just wanted to see what the story was.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
And I also am a big fan. One of my favorite short stories in the world is Brokeback Mountain. Annie Proulx, and God bless her, she's not gay and she's not a man, and she wrote a story that had nothing to do with her life, and she got canceled and said, I wish I never wrote that, and yet it's the best writing you'll ever read. 30 pages will knock you down, because she's connected and because she chose to write the story about two gay guys, whatever. She thought she was doing something good. So in my mind, you're a writer. It doesn't have to be your life story, right? I'm just going to read what the writer's writing and see how it relates to me and what it means to our human condition and, the hero's journey and all of that. And so, and yet on my third listen, I heard some things like the sins of the father. And then I heard some things like rescue my mother. And that's when your voice was narrating it, when I thought, oh, huh.
Right. So there's a lot in there, René. You preface questions very thoroughly. I don't know if it's leading to a question or not, but I think there was a lot there. But I will say this about the Annie Proulx thing. I didn't know she was canceled. I've read the short story. I have a book about From Page to Screen talking about the adaptation of the film. It's one of my favorite films ever. And not just because it's gay themed. I think it's a really beautiful, haunting film. I just love it. So I don't know. I didn't know she had been canceled, but I will say this, when people say, oh, well, why are all the gay parts going to straight actors? It's appropriation, right? And gay actors need jobs, and they're up in arms about the wrong things. I will be the one guy that says, well, that's why it's called acting.
Good.
Like when I cast my gay themed film, I didn't even ask them their sexuality. We just did the proper procedure for auditions and whoever gave the strongest performance. And then you line up the headshots, and it really ends up being about the chemistry of the screen presences in question. It's a lot that goes into it, but never once did I even think about their sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I don't know if that makes, but yeah, isn't that what makes us writers? We have
Right.
access to the full reservoir, however you want to put it, but in Jungian terms, the collective unconscious. We have access to that reservoir, and we can absolutely step into other shoes. That's what makes us writers. One hopes.
Right. And so that was my story, because everything is story. That was my story to just back up myself, justify that I promise you I read it without what's it called, projecting your life story onto this guy, onto the story. I did. And so when I heard your voice do it is when some things kind of clicked for me. And so I'm just laying it out there in case you want to discuss any of it.
You'd have to be a little more specific. I will say this, I absolutely believe every milestone or impasse in the novel is a milestone in the spiritual journey, and that it's relatable and universal, or I wouldn't have written it. I also wanted to infuse my life experience with every effing word, right? I've joked, like, if I can't access something, I'll just take a walk. I'll come back later. But from concept on, it only comes from life experience, because if you have nothing to draw on from life experience, whether it's emotional or just literally the logistics of walking through the Sikh, I always use that example in, The Nameless Prince, walking through the Sikh in Petra and describing the way the stones crumbled. And, if I can't draw on something, I won't write it. And because if you don't, what do you fall back on? Well, old tired tropes, stereotypes, cliches. And so I'm not out to mimic or be derivative or reductive at all, or I wouldn't write. Yeah. Sorry if that's grandiose, but
it's not.
But I tried to pick things that are universal, but there's also that unconscious level where, of course, you think you're writing about certain themes, but you're also working shit out unconsciously. So I made discoveries throughout, and that's called the creative process, right? So I joke, like, I always get to a point in a novel or even a shorter piece where I'm deciding on policy for my own life to move forward. And it's a lot of responsibility. You're a writer. Do you ever hit that point where you're like, I guess I'm making decisions for my life by writing this sentence?
How do you know what you think without writing? Yeah, I know.
Well, but does it ever feel like a lot of responsibility? I find myself writing a passage and I'm like, oh, wait, is that my policy now?
This is going down in writing, and it's going down in history.
It feels like a commitment.
You know what I find that I do, like, constantly, is put a little bow on everything. And I'm very positive. I'm very Pollyanna for writing. Like, I have this habit of just trying to put a bow on it, when really nobody wants that. People want honesty. People want all those storms. They want Zeus to come and blow the ocean, and they want to see the dirty part of your life. They don't want to just see that you came to this lovely conclusion.
Well, if you're French, you really want not just the melancholy endings, you want the noir endings, right? But did you feel like the ambiguity is more like life?
Oh, yeah.
Like we said, you never arrive,
Yeah. But I think that comes from my Pollyanna glasses from being in the Christian church for so long too, that, I want everything to work out in this particular way. I did not learn the word ambiguity till I was 38.
Wow, isn't life amazing? That's so symbolic. Ambiguity. But here's what I'll say, though. I have to say this. Here's what I see in your work, because you are so sophisticated, and as you said, you study literature, that didactic content in narrative format is a no-no. And I've said a million times, and I'll say it again, I chose to impart philosophy, call them spiritual tenets if you want. It's called visionary fiction. That's the whole genre, is imparting, philosophy and or spiritual tenets. And it's very awkward. I've never seen it done well, ever. And, I did it anyway, and I don't hate it, but it's not my best writing. But
I see what you're saying. Okay.
So I think that you're not trying to cleanse the world or offer a hallmark anything. Your work is very layered and textured, and I think it has the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you see the beauty in the decay and the beauty in the melancholy and the value in it. So I wouldn't be so sure. I think you show all the colors, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's
but you do the redemption like I do. You once said to me, oh, you can write narrative nonfiction, but you always put the redemption in there.
Yeah, I like to read a work that's redemptive. Flannery O'Connor wrote a lot of really dark kind of Christian themed work, and she was one of the most celebrated authors of the beginning of this century that is a woman. But I'll never read it again. I'm sorry. I don't like stuff without redemption. But I did, speaking of those things you said, what did you say? Oh, is this my policy now? Or is my name going to go under this on a meme someday? One of the things, two of the things that I loved was that one of the chapters he was just fighting with despair. Okay, one of them he was fighting with futility. Oh my God. So despair is one thing and futility is another. But when he was upset and he was in despair, it said, this is a great quote, that despair forces a person to betray himself.
Mm-hmm.
That one, if you have anything to say about that.
Well, yeah, I'm waiting for the question. Okay, I better answer it because I want to go back to your writing in 1 second. Despair, say it again.
Forces a person to betray himself.
Mm-hmm. Well, another passage says despair pushes until inspiration pulls. But I guess I was talking about, so, and then do you remember the phrase, so early on in life, we betray our essence, you know? And so I'm just talking about how really early in life, ego does take the front seat. You learn what are called Freudian defense mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have those tools, you know, as the youngest of 4 and the youngest of 10 grandkids. I somehow didn't develop those survival skills of whether, you know, name the Freudian defense mechanism. I didn't have it. You know what I mean? Projection, attribution, I guess I misplaced some aggression here and there, but you know, I just didn't. I didn't have a strong ego, and it made me very vulnerable. I don't know where I'm going with that, but despair does what now?
Despair forces a person to betray himself, and then the next.
Oh, that was about the stealing the coins and stuff, right? Yeah, that's
yeah. And then later, it is said that despair pushes until inspiration pulls. Mm-hmm. But for me, if the way I was trying to do my diagram was transformation being in the center, and what I saw was like little tunnels and stuff. So like despair was a tunnel, but without that, that's where the transformation comes from. Mm-hmm. That's the eye of the needle.
Yeah, it's coming back to me. Do you remember him saying, but my biggest transgression was willingly breaking a heart?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a lot about how the brokenhearted are out to break the hearts of others.
Yeah.
And so
hurt people.
Right. So I think he was saying, yes, I've hit bottom, because the one thing I said I would never do is intentionally, and you know, Tennessee Williams talked about this a lot. Blanche Dubois was kindness. She had a lot of rough edges. She was a diamond in the rough, you know, but the one thing she was never guilty of was unkindness or intentional. I put the stakes, you know, way higher, breaking the heart of another. So that was just meant to be bottom for him. And that what was, you know, and then he stole the coins. That was just symbolic. It was all about currency. That whole chapter was about currency.
Right. I see. Right. Because he was stealing the money, and then he was using it to break the other guy's heart. I was going to say something. I'm sorry. It just flew right out of the window. Never mind.
Despair.
Oh, self-loathing. Thank you.
Okay.
Self-loathing. And then but in my mind, it's like, if transformation is the big eye of the needle and things are going through it, right? The self-loathing had to happen, because that came before the physical death, the sword. The self-loathing was another bottom that he had to hit. So when you look at the little circle that I did with the transformation being the center, it's like everything leads to transformation, and transformation leads to redemption, and the redemption leads to love. And so it's just this like weird spiral, circular, like DNA thing that we're going to have to keep going through. And it might not be as bad at 60 when I go through my next self-loathing stage. I'll let you know.
Okay.
And I'll rate it, like how is this mountain as hard to climb as when I was, I don't know, 45, and the one that I had to climb when I was 35, and the one that I had to climb when I was 25. If it's going to keep happening, I wonder if it just kind of isn't so intense the older we get, since it's gonna.
I used the word navel gazing earlier, right?
Yeah, I love
Don't
it.
you think we stop kind of navel gazing, if nothing else? Maybe we still, life never gets easy. You still have challenges, but
Yeah, yeah. I think we stopped nasal. Na- I think we
nasal.
do stop navel gazing, but I think when you turn into this person, like this New Yorker, I am who I am. Leave me alone. I got a right to be who I am. I'm 60. Then it's like, well, I don't want to be around you then, because if you don't want to keep getting back, like mom said that till the day she like couldn't think straight.
She
She
said
said,
what?
I wake up every
I
morning and say, how can I do better today than I did yesterday?
mm-hmm.
And she
Well, I
was
do think,
70 something.
yeah, I think intellectual curiosity and plasticity is a gift, and some people have it and some people don't, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe it can be learned, but I'm thinking about the word self-loathing. I mean, those are really strong words. And I wonder what illustrated self-loathing to you, like that bottom where he stole the coins and broke a heart. He expressed some self-loathing. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly when it was. He was mad at himself, or he felt some self-loathing. Let
Yeah,
me.
I think I was maybe just trying to show that self-love is part of that journey too. You got to learn to love yourself despite your bad blood and despite, right, your disillusionments and your futility and all these other things you've kind of taken on throughout life like a
Mm-hmm.
burden. Part of it is learning to love yourself. Maybe that's why I
Mm-hmm.
heightened the stakes on the self-loathing.
Yeah, and it worked. It worked, and I related to that in a big way. Um, the other thing that I loved that it has to come from you must have this isn't in a lot of the way you wrote it, it's not in a lot of memes or like I don't know videos that I know of, but when Thera's daughter came, one of the sea nymphs, and
Whose
she
daughter? I'm sorry, whose daughter?
what I can't remember her name. I keep
Thetis. Thetis.
Thetis. Thank you. Thetis's daughter came, and she is a sea nymph, and she was scary at first, and then she became beautiful in a human form. And she was trying to say, you can't expect your circumstances to change. You have to change.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I was just like, oh my God, but it took a human being it took her to take the human form,
Interesting.
human to say, don't ask the gods to keep changing your circumstances. They're waiting for you to change, honey.
Mm-hmm.
Just like,
Yeah, that has been said in many circles. It's kind of a conventional wisdom, right? That you can't change. All you can change is yourself. I mean, there's a
yeah,
million ways of saying it. Yeah.
yeah. I guess wherever you go, there you are.
Right, right.
Yeah, but people do that all the time. They get on their knees and they ask the Lord to take this cup away from me. They ask God to change the circumstances right and left. You know, they do.
Yes. Yeah. Well, God is not Santa Claus or a genie.
Right?
But that's, yeah. I mean, Zeus, I think Zeus even says that, right? That um, it's kind of tough love in a way, right?
I
Like,
love it. Yeah.
he did learn at one point, careful what you ask for, because, I mean, that's what the Ime myth was about. If you remember that story about Ime.
Yes, I didn't know how to spell it when I was taking my notes. The Ime myth is be careful what you ask for, right?
Yeah, she was the illustration of that. So it's all kind of interconnected a little bit, Don't give God your wish list. He's not Santa Claus.
Yeah.
It's all on, another way of putting it is it's an inside job.
Ooh, I love that too.
Inner
Yeah.
peace. It's always an inside job. And Abraham Hicks says it in a very funny way. She's like, well, when you get out of Dodge, you take yourself with you. You take the lens, all those lenses through which you see the world, you bring them with you. So she's actually said, oh, really? You want to get out of your marriage? He snores, like whatever the thing, he leaves his underwear on the floor. Really? Okay. Well, the next relationship you find yourself in, it's going to be the exact same thing unless you do the work.
Unless you do the work. That's right. Well, it just really spoke to me, whether I've heard it a million times or not. Because I'm so stable, right? I've been in the same house 40 years. I've done the same business for 40 years. Like, I'm just so stable that I'm not the person that tries to run away from my circumstances, or I don't expect them to change. But that spoke to me because I was with that guy. I was with him and I was like, oh my God, he's the one that has to change. Like, I just really felt it. It was really, really good. And then in the very end, of course, I don't know if we're allowed to really go to the final end, but the message literally of, you brought it up when we first started talking about co-creating, which is manifestation, and the things that we manifest because of our hurts or our positivity. There was a lot of stuff about being positive in the end. You didn't use the word positive though.
Yeah, well, yeah, it all came together, and it got a little bit preachy at the end, but it is what it is. It's I blame it on the genre, but I think he did process everything from the whole journey, and it all. I mean, really, it is the hero's journey. It's always everything you needed is in your own backyard. The alchemist, everything he was seeking on his odyssey was always there to begin with. You again just got to change out the lens through which you see it. Wizard of Oz, everything you needed is in your own backyard.
Wizard of Oz, right? Yeah, that is one of the beautiful themes. And then the other hero's journey is where they go down into the darkness, into Hades, and the miserable storms and all of that. And you come back up, and you have a jewel to give to society, which to me was a little bit how he wanted to serve the world by fighting for his homeland. He wanted to be strong. He got some strength, and he wanted to share his strength. And that's how I felt. That's part of the hero's journey is come back with something to give to others.
Absolutely.
But the idea of like the two-sided coin of negative, positive, or yin and yang, or whatever, manifesting, bringing shitstorm to yourself or bringing good things to yourself, and how once he got a hold of those concepts that he was partially responsible for the shit that the place that he ended up, like he played a part in it, and then he wanted to then not keep up beating that same drum, to use that metaphor that was in there.
Well, here I have to react to, you said positive and negative so much in there that I will, in case there's any value to it, I don't know how it relates to The Seeker, but for most of my life, being an artist, I think we're really good, we artists, at seeing, again, the beauty in the melancholy, the beauty in the decay, the beauty in the traditionally negative, right?
Right.
So I would have always said, you can't have the yin without the yang. You don't recognize the beauty without whatever the opposite is. And only in Western Judeo-Christian culture do we put values, good, bad, right, wrong, black, white. Whereas, Eastern philosophy is a little more yin and yang. They're complementary. They all have value. So I've always said, well, sorry, I'm an artist. When people talk about positivity, positive thinking, I thought, well, stay with the shadow, and a lot of people, Thomas More and even Jung, talk about embracing the shadow side of the human condition. So I maybe was just justifying my own negative thoughts by saying, well, it all has value. Sit with it. Don't. But I've come to the point where, because as you know, I've learned a lot about the law of attraction and manifestation the past few years. I would say, you know what? You know how it feels in your body. If the feelings are toxic to your body. It's called, you feel it in your gut. So as much as I've resisted positive and negative thought forms, they're alive and well. You know which thought forms produce cortisol and adrenaline. And that's called stress. Stress equals inflammation. Inflammation equals disease. I had to learn that to remain above ground. So I still resist, putting too many value judgments on things, but I will say, what feels good in your body. I've learned and now I'm really preaching, but I just read The Biology of Belief with Bruce Lipton, and I've learned in no uncertain terms how your thoughts and feelings literally through the cell wall, called non-local energetic communication, affect the goings on in that cell.
Wow.
And so, Eastern medicine acknowledges the superhighways, the energetic superhighways throughout your body, chakras, things like that. Whereas Western medicine is totally focused on, let's treat everything chemically and it'll diffuse through the cell wall, but they don't acknowledge the power of thoughts and feelings to affect every cell of your body. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I feel like that was sort of what was happening, that every cell of his body was feeling all of the stuff he was supposed to learn, and then he was ready to use it. Right? And so there was a part in the end where he said something like about a mantra, like your belief becomes your action and your habit. What is it?
Yeah, well, actually Gandhi has this list of your thoughts become your habits become blah, blah, blah. It's kind of based on that, but really just beliefs are thoughts you keep thinking. Beliefs are just thoughts you keep thinking. Maybe it was something around that. I don't know.
Well,
Well, he was talking about how he manifested that dark reality. I was kind of
right.
bringing it home for the reader. Like, actually, he didn't just have a hand in it; he was responsible for all of it.
Mm,
Quantum mechanics, that idea of the observer effect, and
hmm
quantum mechanics absolutely, acknowledges that we literally create our own reality.
hmm Thoughts have power. I got that though. I got that toward the very end, and then, especially after he met with his mom, and she kind of, uh, I want to say, validated his journey. Like it was all worth it. And then they talk about how you have to transform your own will. And that's like when the gods send you trials, right? Then you're allowed to challenge those trials, and you're allowed to then infuse your will in order to transform, if that's your goal. And so he never had, except for that one time, he started telling bad stories about himself, about the guys, not yeah, Tarhun and
Urmed.
Ermed. He started thinking negative thoughts about them. Remember, he was like, "Well,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what we
Building
do."
stories, we build
Yes,
stories
that's
around
what
things,
we
right?
do. That's right. And so then when he came to his senses and he met them again in the end, he was just like,
Ah,
I,
all
I,
water under the bridge. Yeah.
yes. And basically he's like, I don't need to tell myself these stories anymore. I can move on.
Well, that was,
Everything came together.
and it's called forgiveness, right? I think the main
Uh-huh.
thing the mother taught him, because I actually didn't follow you just now. I thought, oh, well, but I thought she taught him forgiveness because she was saying, yeah, we're giving everything away. But yes, your father did A, B, C, and D, but I've actually forgiven him. And
hmm
remember, Amitayus is like, holy crap, you can do that.
Yeah.
but and that's where the flesh and spirit thing came in. And I do think that's the key to all forgiveness is realizing we all have an ego. When we don't feel safe, we act less than lovingly and
Mm,
we protect ourselves through ego. And
mm,
how can you not forgive that?
hmm
I've got my list of reasons for, okay, but that's crossing a line, right?
Yeah. Well, I just loved the story itself, whether you pull it apart, because in the end, you got me when he comes home to his dad, and his father has no ill, just no ill, whatever it's called, ill will or whatever. They're just the connection that they had at the end, and just how he was home, and how the most important things in life, he saw them now after he's been gone for 7 years. It was really, really a good story. I mean, regardless of whether you didn't feel comfortable with the the messaging that was in there, which was brilliantly done. It just was weaved into the story, because we want to know what's going to happen next. We're not reading it to say, oh, what is the tenet I'm supposed to learn in this chapter?
Thank you for saying that. I think my way around that was I tried to make any spiritual wisdom I was trying to impart, I tried to make it universal enough that it felt mythic. Do you
It
know what I
did.
mean? The mythic
100%.
context felt better to me, because I really do. When I read really didactic messaging and writing, I think just write a fucking self help book. Just write in the wellness genre. Don't awkwardly put it in narrative format. But the mythic thing was my way out, if that makes sense.
It worked. I'm telling you, it worked, because it wouldn't have worked. I, I mean, you wouldn't want to read however many pages, 300 pages, and not cry in the end when the man comes home and embraces everything that matters. It was beautiful.
I
I
want to
loved
come
it
back
as
back to
stories
the
go. Yeah.
You're very sweet. Thank you. I'm glad it moved you. I want to come back to the coming home idea. But a little earlier, I did want to say every time, and again, I'm not an expert on any kind of mythology, but every time I read a myth, my jaw drops at how succinctly it approximates the human condition. Every time I read a Bible
I know.
passage, which is not often, but every single parable in the Bible is jaw dropping. It doesn't get any like
Uh-huh,
right in
uh-huh.
terms of the power of storytelling to betray the true nature of not just consciousness, but the human condition. It's jaw
Mm-hmm,
dropping. They got it right straight out the
mm-hmm.
gate. And that's why we've been retelling stories, regurgitating the same archetypes ever since.
That is a great point. It is amazing, because each story, like Andrea, obviously, my friend Andrea, who knows, she's a mythologist, she knows every story. When you just read a little book, with vignettes, and your jaw, like you said, is just on the floor because you're like, and even Shakespeare, how the hell did he know that at,
Amazing.
28 years old? And he put it, because when you study Shakespeare, then that's when you see all the human nature is just written like a myth.
I was going to say the scary part is we haven't evolved because it's all still 100% relevant.
Hmm.
Yeah, he nailed it, man. And to be 20, Shile, the artist, right? You love Egon Schiele.
Oh, yeah.
Died at 26, but to reach that level of genius, right?
Mm-hmm.
Long before 26, but I will say in William Shakespeare's case, we didn't live very long back then. So
Right,
you
he
had to,
died young.
yeah, you had to hit that genius mark earlier.
Early. So for you then, now that this is, it's kind of containing your story up to this point, what's next for you? What do you think, writing-wise?
Wow, good question. Before we bring it to a close, because I feel like we're getting close, I can't believe you care enough to even have these conversations. You're totally indulging me. I appreciate it. And I do believe that the piece spoke to you, but it means a lot to me that you're like willing to humor me and even get into the nitty gritty. But I like that you liked the coming home. And I guess it was a bow. I feel like it was more of a bow than I normally write, by the
Mm-hmm.
way. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
just thank you. But what is next? I don't know. Oh, I do know. I'll be honest. I have not had any creative wind in my sails since the election.
Mm.
I'm not kidding. And I'm trying to just wake up every day and give a shit about humanity and the planet and the future, little things like that. So
Tiny.
No, I just have not had any inspiration. I continue to do the podcast and to put myself in really good company. You know how Mother Teresa has said, I didn't see the presence of God for 20 years, but I did the work.
I forgot
Like
about that. Yeah.
she would still do the work in the trenches. So I'm going through the motions on the podcast because I believe in the contribution. And then, of course, it's getting comical because I have to work through stuff. And I sadly involve Virginia in that. And it takes the form of me going, wait, why did we book this person? And like, I have to really force myself to get there. And then I fall in love with him every time. I fall in love with him, and we have a great episode. So I am going through the motions, and it, like you, it's keeping me inspired. But creatively, nothing. So I'm trying to just promote the books that are already out there, like doing this interview. But I did have, let's see, one little bit of inspiration the other day. And it's, do you like Faulkner at all? Do you read Faulkner?
I have. I mean, in my past.
Yeah, I can't think of which piece. Maybe As I Lay Dying. I loved that. And then my actor, remember Aaron from Outpost?
Yeah.
Can't think of his last name. Aaron. Anyway, he did a beautiful film called Redlands.
Ooh.
And it was just about, and I've written about this a lot, but our powers, to manifest. And I always say a woman's will can move mountains. Don't know why. It was from another story I wrote. But how we have this subconscious wish fulfillment, and it can move mountains. So I like haunting stories about like, hey, why did that person get removed from the equation? And how did that one just mysteriously die that allowed these two people to be together? So like the subconscious preconceived notions can manifest. Desires are really powerful in terms of manifesting a reality. And so I won't say too much, but a story about kind of a cautionary tale about the power of desire and how if something's standing in the way, you're going to do away with it. Is that mysterious enough?
Well, yeah, but it also kind of echoes the idea that your lens is going to control your destiny.
Yeah. Well, you know me, I write about the same things. But anyway, I just had a little inspiration, and we've talked about this. I'm kind of fascinated with episodic writing now for Netflix. So I thought there's a million of my short stories or short novellas, or long short stories or short novellas that I feel like kind of lend themselves to that episodic format, but I'm too lazy to write them in screenplay format.
Yeah. Ask ChatGPT to do it for you.
Oh my God, I should.
They will. You just give them the book and go, can you put this in a 30-minute episode for a Black Mirror type, whatever. season.
Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me. No, I
No.
conceived this one kind of as a 10 episode season in a way. So maybe that'll be my next. Now I just need to get Final Cut Pro again so I can write in screenplay format.
Oh, you have to. I don't know anything about that. Final Cut Pro, I thought was for music.
Oh, I meant Final Draft. Sorry, I need both. Final Draft.
Okay. Well, so that's. I'd like to also just say that it feels like your creativity is like dormant, but of course, just getting up and trying to be positive and doing the podcast and all of that, is creative work. It's just not in the form. It's taking all of your creativity
Right.
just to live your life right now.
The self-talk is creativity.
Yeah, and I kid you not, have a friend who uses ChatGPT as a therapist and as a self-talk helper. They know everything about them, and they tell them every problem, and they come at them, and they go, okay, now, and they just like
Does
a good therapist.
Does it archive all the conversations?
Everything. It knows everything you've been through.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Free therapy, man.
Mm-hmm.
But I do, as much as I'm not going to say despise AI, but as controversial as it is, and we just did 2 episodes on it that are upcoming, probably be released in about a month. Let's say, as ambivalent as I am about what it means for humanity, I do like that it retains a degree of objectiveness. So if you ask it a direct question, it'll take the cesspool of humanity, right, or the status quo, and actually give you an objective. You could argue about that, right? That even the status quo has an agenda and is propaganda.
Yeah.
But within reason, it can be pretty objective. I
agree. I'm writing the memoir, and I'm not smart enough to understand all the legal mumbo jumbo. And so I did just one time, ask ChatGPT to explain it to me, like Democrat Republican 101. Help me, because I don't understand a lot of politics to this day. And so they gave me a really great report on what I needed. I'm like, Jim, I'm leaving you for ChatGPT. I was so rescued. That was my knight in shining armor. But it is the reason I quit teaching at the college.
I remember that, yeah. No, it's great for information. You could argue it's going to be slanted or blah, blah, blah. It's got an agenda or it's propaganda, but it's good for information. My favorite meme is, I just wanted to do my laundry.
That's right.
And free me up for more creativity.
Exactly. I don't want it to do my creative stuff, just my laundry. Well, in any case, I hope that you keep, I know that sometimes you have told me, and I've just always loved it. Like, writing has gotten you up in the morning. It's gotten you through hard times. Getting up and writing from beginning to end in that handwriting on those black composition books, like
I don't do that anymore.
It's your lifeline. And so I know right now you're not in that stage, and that you don't have to be, but I know that it's part of your DNA. And if it's a little bit shy right now and in the closet, so to speak, it's going to come out. I mean, there's no way you can be Dominick Domingo and not be creatively working hard and expressing yourself and using all the skill and talent and thought forms and philosophies and heart that you have. There's no way it won't happen.
Well, thank you for reminding me who I am, because you're not wrong.
I am Stephanop. What's his name? Staphilos. I am Staphilos at the table.
Did you catch all of the Greeks we grew up with? By the way, all the names are in there.
Karaoke.
There's an Andrula, there's an Eleni, there's a Christofi Kitchen. You got Christofi Kitchen.
Yeah, that was great. Well, I'm really excited. I will write the cliff notes for you when it's time.
I want to see your Venn diagram too, please.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was started out as a Venn. I don't know that it's called it's a spider, I guess, is what it is, right?
I don't remember the name, but I get the idea. I can't believe you did so much homework. Thank you.
Oh no, it was fun. It was absolutely fun. I'm in love with literature, and first I just read it for no reason, right? And then I listened to it just to enjoy it. And then I went back and was like, I wish there was some cliff notes. I wish there was some summaries. I wish there was a character's. And I thought, we need to do a cliff notes.
Are those still a thing?
Oh, hell yeah.
I will take whatever you want to give me. I'm just honored you would even do it.
Well,
and I'm realizing now at the top of this episode, I'm going to add it. I'm just going to read the book cover, the book jacket, because I think a synopsis will help some of this make a little more sense,
Yeah, and I didn't want to give it all away. And I did listen to Shauna.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to it, and I did enjoy it. And so I really didn't want to do too many repeats of what we discussed. And I did kind of want to ask you more about the creative process and about all the research, but I guess we'll have to talk about that next time I'm on and we talk about my research. You can throw in your research.
Okay. Yeah, we're coming up on how long? We're coming
2
up
hours.
on... Oh, are you serious?
Well, no, because we didn't start right on time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, next time for sure. Yeah, like I said, I kind of looked at my research. It's been 5 years, Renee. I wrote this in 2020. I started in 2020.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe that much time has passed.
So I looked at my own notes and I was kind of shocked. It becomes something else. And I kind of completely forgot where it began and what came straight off the pen, straight out the gate, and what came later. So yeah, I would love to have that conversation about how I approached it and specifically the research, for sure.
Well, I really love that you returned to your notes, even if they were a little bit foreign to you. I love that. I think that might trigger something or activate something in you.
Well, it certainly allowed me to be able to do this. So again, thank you so much for indulging me. I appreciate it.
I was not indulging you. I was enjoying the actual work itself. I was shaking the snow globe.
Well, thank you. Really, okay. I'm grateful either way. Okay, thanks, guys. And to our listeners, remember, life is story, and we can get our hands in the clay. Individually and collectively, we can write a new story. See you next time.
We want to take a moment to thank our wonderful listeners and supporters. Your continued support and sharing of our podcast helps us spread the transformative power of storytelling. If you enjoy our episodes, please rate and review us on your favorite platform and share the podcast with friends and family. For more enriching conversations and insights, subscribe to Language of the Soul podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. Follow us on social media and visit our Patreon website for the latest updates and exclusive content. Your support helps us continue to bring these important stories to life. If you'd like to support us further, consider joining our Patreon community for exclusive content and donation options. Every bit of support helps us reach more hearts and minds.